Shalom, Israel. Most high in Christ bless. Blessed Sabbath to you. My name is Brother Zerubbabel.
My name is Ezra Salazar.
We are children of Israel. Welcome back again to the Sabbath day. We're going to continue our series of lessons on Beware of All Unrighteousness. Today we're going to be dealing with the topic of MURDER, red rum, unaliving. Trying not to say the word too much. I know YouTube is kind of weird about it. It's like, how can you do a topic on what's written in the Bible about MURDER, but can't say the word? It doesn't make sense. It's just crazy. Um, but we're going to be dealing with murder, just to get it out there. We've been dealing, with this topic, as some of you may know, if you've been watching, um, dealing with all unrighteousness, going sin by sin, breaking them down, going through them. Today, just so happened, is dealing with this topic. We're going to jump right into it. We've done other classes on this topic, breaking down Commandment 6, thou shalt not kill. You know what I mean? We've done several classes on this topic already. So this one may be, it's going to be a little bit different than other ones we've done. Others, we've completely broken them down, you know what I mean? Doing the spiritual aspect of what murder is, showing, through the scriptures that you don't have to actually be caught standing over someone with a pew or a knife in your hand in order to be considered a murder. We're not gonna, touch on that, actually at all today. We're just gonna stick to the actual MURDER violence aspect of it, pretty much. If you want to see that aspect of it, go watch the other videos. That's why this one's a little bit more condensed, more to stick with the topic of bewaring of all unrighteousness. And that has something to do with it. Also, you want to make sure that you, um, if you do have that hateful murderous spirit upon you, you don't have to be a physical murderer, like we said. Just the fact that you may have hatred in your heart towards your brother and sister, that alone makes you a murderer according to the scriptures. Um, or just grab that real quick. We'll just to get it out the way, so people would understand it's not something we're making up. It is in the scriptures, so that we can get onto the topic. I think it's First John 3:15.
The book of First John, chapter 3, and verse 15. Whosoever hated his brother is a murderer, and ye know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him.
All right, so the scriptures tells us that whoever hated his brother is a murderer. So, as we were just saying, according to the scriptures, according to the Bible, according to God, you don't have to be caught standing over a corpse with a weapon in your hand in order to be a murderer. Just you having that spirit of hatred towards your brother or sister, and that makes you a murderer already in the eyes of the Most High. So we've got to keep that in mind. If you have that kind of spirit upon you, you have any hatred, ill will towards any of your fellow Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, um, it's time for our people to wake up and understand that this is what our enemies push on us. It's not by coincidence that they continually push this division and hatred between the blacks and Hispanics, the Hispanics and blacks, the Hispanics and Native Americans and blacks. They continually push it. Um, but at the same time, they'll throw, the Asians in there. They'll throw some of the other nationalities in there. Sometimes it'd be the Hindus, the Indians. And I'm talking about the Indians. not the so-called Native American Indians from here. Sometimes it'll just be, the Arabs that they'll, have come against us, and they'll cause that division. But right now, there's a big push in the earth to keep the blacks and Hispanics divided, and it's done on purpose because they understand the scriptures. They understand that if they could keep us divided, keep us having that murderous hatred spirit towards each other, that it keeps us in sin. It keeps us away from our God. So just keep that in mind. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick, just get it out of the way. Like I said, if you really want to get more of a understanding of it, go watch some of our other lessons. We have a full lesson on Commandment 6, thou shalt not kill. We've done other classes on murder and things like that, violence. Um, but again, this goes back to what we always open up with. Our people need to be retaught the Bible, so that way um, we can get that hatred, that division out of our people, so that we can stop having what's so called black on black crime, brown on brown crime, black on brown, brown on black, so called. That I'm saying so called because that's what they call us. Um, but it's not doing us any good. It's not a solution to our problems for us to be fighting against each other. It doesn't help anything at all. It's not helping the so-called blacks, not helping the so-called Hispanics, not helping the so-called Native Americans. We have to come together, which is what the Bible commands us. Um, get that. Oh my gosh, Zephaniah, I believe 2:1. Zephaniah 2:1. Gather
The
yourselves
book
to.
of um, the book of Zephaniah, chapter 2 and verse 1. Gather yourself together. Yeah, gather together, O nation, not desire.
O nation not desired. You so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, you are the nation that's not desired. You are the Israelites. They don't want us to know that we're the Israelites. They don't, they have to keep us completely separated from our nationality, our heritage. They got to have us completely separated from our brothers and sisters, because they know that when we come together, that's what's gonna, along with us keeping the commandments of our God and having our God behind us, that's what's gonna give us strength. That's what's gonna give us the strength to overcome anything that our enemies put before us. They understand that as long as they could keep us in sin, as long as they could keep us divided, that keeps us weak. That keeps our God from helping us. Okay. So our people, as we always say, they need to be retaught the scriptures, because, excuse me, all these different denominations of Christianity and religion that have been passed down to us from our enemies as we've been here in this captivity, um, none of it has been for our benefit. And unfortunately for our people, with, suffering from Stockholm syndrome, the love of our enemies, the trust of our enemies, that the envy of our enemies, that a lot of our people just don't want to wake up. They become too comfortable um, in this society, to where they don't want to know the truth. They don't want to be retaught. They're very comfortable being in the Catholic Church, being in the Baptist Church, Jehovah's Witness, Seventh Day Adventist, Methodist, a Pentecostal. You can go on and on down the line. They're comfortable because it makes them feel like they're accepted. Okay. But in reality, none of these churches, none of these denominations of religion, not Islam, not Hinduism, Buddhism, any other ism you want to think of, none of them are teaching our people the truth. None of them are a solution for our people. The only solution, which we're going to touch up at the end of the lesson, but the only solution for our people is the Bible. All right. Um, so let's start off as usual with Hebrews 5:12 through 14.
The book of Hebrews, chapter 5 and verse 12. For when for the time you ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. For every one that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil.
All right. So we're showing you that the majority of our people that are in this captivity, they need this milk. All right. They're unskillful in the word of righteousness. They really don't know how to go through the scriptures and get understanding. Okay. They don't study in order to receive knowledge of wisdom and understanding of the scriptures. Their knowledge of the actual Bible is limited. Um, Unfortunately, our people are taught to serve God just basically based on your feelings, based on your own will, your own thoughts, your own so-called personal relationship with God, which none of that basically is in the scriptures. Okay. He's dealing with a nation of people, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, who are the Israelites, and he gave you his law, statutes, commandments, and judgments, and told you to keep them, and gave you certain stipulations that, and promises that if you kept the commandments, you kept his law, you would have the benefit of certain promises fulfilled. All right, blessings that would be given to us as a nation. And then we were also told that if we didn't keep the commandments, that there were punishments. Okay, just like a parent dealing with their child. So if you really want to get wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures, you have to first be willing to be retaught. That's the first principle. You have to be retaught. All right. You need the milk. That's why I said, for when for the time you ought to be teacher, have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles, the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. You need this milk. All right. That's the only way you're going to grow. Let's go to First Peter 2:2.
The book of First Peter, chapter 2 and verse 2. As newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby.
As it says, as newborn babes, just like a newborn child, needs the mother's breast, needs to get that milk from the breast. You have to have that same desire to learn. That's what this is telling us. You have to be willing to humble yourself. You got to be willing to become as a little child and be willing to absorb, all this knowledge, which is written in this Bible. Okay. So, as newborn babes, desire the sincere milk of the word that you may grow thereby. That's the only way you're going to grow in knowledge, the only way you're going to grow in wisdom, the only way you're going to grow in understanding. All right. It's not going to happen any other way. Okay. So, with that, let's go to Psalms 26. You're going to read verses 8 through 12.
The book of Psalms, chapter 26 and verse 8. Lord, I have loved the habitation of thy house, and the place where thine honor dwelleth. Gather not my soul with sinners, nor my life with bloody men, in whose hands is mischief, and their right hand is full of breeze,
Bribes.
but as bribes, full of bribes. But as for me, I will walk in my integrity. Redeem me and be merciful unto me. My foot standeth in an even place. In the congregation will I bless the Lord.
All right. So he's saying, Lord, I have loved the habitation of thy house and the place where thine honor dwelleth. Okay. He's loved it. Okay, being in the Holy Land, being in Jerusalem, being able to, go to the temple and um, but at that time you got to remember that the temple wasn't built yet during the time of King David. So before anybody even says something like, "What are you talking about?" All right, but just in general, just being able to be in that place, whether it's the tabernacle was still around during the time of David. All right, um, so we've got to keep that in mind, that we've got to love it the same way, even though we're not able to go to a tabernacle, we're not able to go to the temple, but in some place we got schools, people that have different schools, different Israelite churches, whether it's at an actual commercial building. Some people have their gatherings in someone's home. Some are at parks. Um, you see people get creative, you know what I mean, until they're able to gather, the funds together to be able to get a building. But we've got to um, love being able to have, especially like the Sabbath day, being able to serve our Lord. Okay, we've got to have that same feeling. All right. So he's saying, "Gather not my soul with sinners, nor my life with bloody men." That's one of the things that we have to really pay attention to in this life. You can, Lord willing, one day open your eyes and look around you and take a full evaluation of your life and the people that you have around you within the confines of your life. And you will find that there are people around you that hate you. You know what I mean? And you would never know it because they sit in your face every day, smile, pretend to be your friend. And in reality, they may have envious spirit towards you. For whatever reason, they have some jealousy, hatred towards you. Um, whatever the case is, you have to be really careful because you may find yourself in the midst of bloody men, people that have that murderous hatred, hateful spirit upon them that we read about earlier. Just hating your brother, making you a murderer. So it's more than just us as as a people gathering together, as we just read in Zephaniah 2:1. Gather yourselves together. Yeah, gather yourselves together, O nation not desired. Okay, even though we're commanded to gather together, you need to be very careful, aware of who you gather with. All right. It's just because somebody looks like you, they may say they're an Israelite like you. Um, you got to really pay attention to what kind of spirits they have on them. As he says, gather not my soul with sinners. You don't want to be gathering together with a bunch of sinners, especially those that have that murderous spirit upon them. As he says, nor my life with bloody men. All right. There are some people out there in this world, and people that they could be coworkers, they could be family members, they could be friends, associates. You know what I mean? There's people that are out there, strangers, that are what the Bible is calling bloody men, that they have no qualms about, shedding blood. Well, and we're gonna watch a video later on that basically goes shows you, how far as a people we've fallen in this society. Um, that illustrates what it's talking about being in the midst of a bloody man or a bloody woman. Those that whose principles, their morals are basically non-existent, to the fact that they have no qualms about shedding another person's blood. They can do it without batting an eyelash. They can do, you know what I mean, without thought, no remorse, no empathy, no sympathy towards other people, nothing. They have nothing. Um, it's kind of like If you think back to the old Halloween movies, when back in the world they used to watch those Michael Myers movies, and he would talk about Michael Myers as being the boogeyman. Um, talking about how he would look into his eyes and they were the darkest, coldest eyes he had ever seen in his life. No soul. There's just nothing there. There are actually people in this world like Michael Myers. Unfortunately, there are some real life Michael Myers walking this earth. Okay, and you've got to be very careful because not all of them are walking around with a Halloween mask carrying a 12-inch butcher knife. You know what I mean? They're, openly to where you can openly spot them out and be like, oh, there's the bad guy. They're wearing a mask, all right, but not that kind of mask. Okay. They're coming with their face with a smile, with a wink, with a soft voice. And, they're putting on a front, putting on a show, pretending like they're your buddy. But in reality, they have some very wicked, evil plans for you. All right. So he says in verse 10, in whose hands is mischief, and their right hand is full of bribes. Okay. That's one way you can spot them out. Why would you want to be in the midst of people that love being caught up in mischief? Why would you want to be around people whose life is about bribing others? You know what I mean? You got to keep an eye open. It says, but as for me, I will walk in mine integrity. And that's what we all should be aspiring to do. We should be aspiring to walk this walk in integrity. Okay. Um, Meaning, even when nobody's looking, you should be keeping God's commandments. Even when you think that nobody will ever find out, that's basically what integrity is. All right. Doing what's expected of you, even when nobody's watching. Out, like an example, let's say you're at work and the boss says, you know what, I need you to uh, keep working for the next couple of hours before you take your break. We're behind. We need to catch up. Um, I'm not going to be here to watch. I got to go over to another department and get them in order also. So I'm not going to be here looking over your shoulder to make sure you're getting this work done. And you're like, oh, yes, sir. Yeah, yeah, And then the boss turns around and walks away. And as soon as he walks away, you just, throw your tools down, whatever kind of work it is, and throw your headphones on, get your phone out, start texting and carrying on. And then when you know that the boss is coming back, you suddenly start acting like you're working again. That's integrity. All right. The boss isn't there to watch you, and the boss comes up and he's like, hey, how's everything going? You've been, oh, yeah, I'm getting it done. Yeah, I've been working. I'm getting it done. He's not going to know. Well, unfortunately, nowadays, in most jobs, especially if you work indoors, they've got cameras everywhere. Especially if you work in like one of these, like Amazon, these factories like that, warehouses. I mean, not factories, but warehouses. They've got cameras everywhere, so it's going to be real hard to slack off on the job at some of these places nowadays. But Lord, where you got the idea of what I'm talking about, though. You know what I mean? Walking in your integrity. It's the same thing with the Lord. Even when you don't think anybody's going to find out, you know what I mean? Whether it's being a thief, being an adulterer, being a murderer, being a covetous person, whatever the case is, whatever sin that you're involved in. The scriptures talk about this throughout the Bible, that a lot of our people are just worried about what man thinks of them. They are not, taking into account that the Lord's eyes are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, that he sees and knows everything that we do. Yeah, he's keeping an eye on his children. He knows when we're slacking off. He knows when we're doing wrong. All right. You can't hide it from him. No matter how much you tell yourself, well, so and so, they'll never see me, they'll never find out. The Lord knows, all right? And that's why you got to keep your integrity. You got to, even when you don't think anybody's going to find out, you got to keep those commandments, all right? Then he says, my foot standeth in an even place, in the congregations will I bless the Lord. Okay, let's go to Psalms 59 and 1 through 4. There it is.
The book of Psalms, chapter 59 and verse 1. Deliver me from mine enemies, O my God. Defend me from them that rise up against me. Deliver me from the workers of iniquity and save me from bloody men. For lo, they lie in wait for my soul. The mighty are gathered against me, not for my transgressions, nor for my sins, O Lord. Then, they run and prepare themselves without my fault, await to help me, and behold.
All right, so again, this is what we all should be asking the Most High, especially from our natural enemies, which are the other nations, but even from among our own brothers and sisters. Deliver me from mine enemies, oh my God. Defend me from them that rise up against me. Because even in this truth, you're going to have family members that are going to rise up against you, as Christ told us. Your own father, your own mother, your own brothers, your own sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, and so on down the line. You're going to have them turn against you and come against you in this walk. You're going to have friends come against you and turn against you in this walk. Okay. Co-workers are going to come against you and turn against you in this walk if they find out that you're an Israelite and you're keeping the Lord's commandments and wearing fringes and women wearing a head wrap and you know what I mean, and not wearing pants or only wearing dresses, keeping the Sabbath day. You're not showing up to Christmas and Thanksgiving anymore and Easter Sunday anymore. You're not doing these things. They're going to come against you. You're going to become the weirdo of the family. All right. So you got to be prepared for that. So he said, deliver me from my enemies. Oh my God. Defend me from them that rise up against me. Deliver me from the workers of iniquity and save me from bloody men. All right. So again, this is going back to talking about these bloody men, these people that have this wicked, evil, murderous spirit about them that hold whether it's a secret hatred or they just right out tell you they don't like you, because nowadays there are people that are like that they'll just flat out make it known to you that they don't like you, whether it be by a look, it could be microaggressive comments that they make towards you, um, or just outright you know inflammatory comments that they make right to your face, because there are some people out there like that they'll just flat out tell you to your face, I don't like you, I can't stand you, like what do like get away from me, I don't want to have nothing to do with you, what are you here for? There are people like that in this world, all right, especially amongst the Israelites, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Okay, you could walk into a room and feel the tension. Okay, so you got to be aware. And one of the things that we should be doing is just like we're reading here, is praying to the Most High to keep us away from these type of people. All right, because unfortunately, um, when you walk out your doors, it's kind of like in the movie The Matrix, where Neo was doing what did they call it? It was one of the simulations. He's walking around and there's just they're in the middle of the city, there's people walking by everywhere, and he's not aware that one of the agents is amongst the crowd, because you got professionals in suits, you got women walking around in business attire, well dressed, just like a busy New York street. And then all of a sudden, I believe it was Morpheus freezes everything, and he turns around and there's an agent there with a pew pew, and it's like, You didn't see him, right? Didn't recognize him, didn't. So it's kind of the same thing. When you walk out your doors every day, you're passing by wicked, evil people every single day, monsters. You walk around a grocery store, you're passing monsters. Um, and also, depending on, what neighborhood you may live in, it gets worse. Um, the frequency is greater of the amount of wicked, evil, hateful, murderous monsters that are surrounding you. You're driving down the street, driving down the freeway, you're passing and being passed by wicked, evil monsters every day. Sometimes you can point them out. They're the ones cutting in and out of the traffic, cutting people off, flipping them off, cursing them out. See this stuff every single day. People getting out their cars, arguing, getting ready to fight, all kinds of crazy stuff. All right. And a lot of times, I think just out of self preservation, sometimes people try and pretend like it's not there. You know how it is. They'll pretend like something's not real, it's not there. And if you don't think about it, then it's not real. But the fact of the matter is, nowadays, when your wife goes to the store by herself, you go to the store by yourself, anytime you walk out your doors, you've got to have your head on the swivel. Got to be aware of your surroundings. All right, because there's a lot of wicked, what the Bible calls bloody men out there, and they're lying in wait for you. All right. So he says, deliver me from the workers of iniquity and save me from bloody men. How many stories are on the news, nowadays of even on like YouTube and TikTok and things like that, people putting these videos out of women, going to Target. And next thing they know, there's men walking around, following them around the store, taking pictures of them and things like that. In fact, um, I remember it was some years back now that I was in the store and saw a guy walking around with his phone down, taking pictures of women's behinds, taking pictures of their butts. And at first, it kind of threw me off. I was like, did he just do what I think he just did? And I said, where'd that dude go? Because it looked to me like he walked by that woman and put his phone down and snapped a picture of her butt. I was like, you know what? So I walked around the store and saw him. I was like, okay, and started watching him. And that's exactly what he was doing. He was walking around the store with his cell phone out. He'd walk by the woman, put his phone down, snap a picture of her, and go about his business, and they would be none the wiser. So what I did, I went up to the counter, went up to one of the registers and told the lady behind the register, hey, I just want to let you know there's a dude walking around here with his camera out, taking pictures of women's rear ends. I was trying to say it, the most, um, I don't know, how could I put it, without being graphic, non-graphical way I could. And she was like, "Wait, are you saying?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's looking around. I'm looking like, "Oh, there he is, right there. He's walking around. You see, he's got his camera out. And she was like, "Oh, um, thanks for telling me." And then one of the ladies that he did it to walked up and got in line. And this is one of the things. It was really saddening that as a society we've gotten to the point to where people just dismiss stuff, trying to be cool, trying to be you know tough and show that they're not bothered. So the lady walked out. I was like, hey, in fact, ma'am, when you were over in aisle such and such, he walked by you and he did it to you. And she looked at me and was like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. So I was letting you know. She was like, well, that's flattering. You know what I mean? The way she said it, like, oh, that's flattering. like somebody, that somebody would even want to take a picture of me. And I'm looking at her like, are you serious? Like, really, are you serious? And she's trying to look at me like I was crazy. You know what I mean? For even saying anything about it. And it's just like, woman, you have absolutely, and this was at the time I was still teaching, like thinking in my head, like, lady, you have absolutely no idea. You could walk out to your car and be, have a van pull up and snatch you up, and you know what I mean? Like, you have no idea. And you're just gonna dismiss it like this. I was kind of like told the lady at behind her, so well, regardless of what she's saying, there are other women in here that may not feel the way she does. He needs to be dealt with. And so she called the security over, and I know they went over and, had to, grab him and pull him to the side. I ended up leaving. I didn't stick around to see what happened afterwards. And I know my wife said she saw the same thing at Walmart recently, of a man walking. As I told her, I tell her about that stuff all the time. And um, I know it was recently she, came home from Walmart and was telling me that, I was walking around. And remember that time you told me about? Like, yeah, it was a guy walking around doing that. So anytime you walk out your house, you got to prepare yourself. You got to prepare your wife. You got to prepare your kids that, there are some bloody men out there that are out looking for blood. Kids walking to school nowadays. When I was a kid, we walked to school. We rode our bikes to school from kindergarten all the way up, through high school. You know what I mean? It was rare that you saw it. In fact, you got made fun of if your mommy was, especially when you was in high school, if mommy and daddy were still dropping you off at school, you got made fun of. You know what I mean? If you didn't have your driver's license by the time you were 16, you were made fun of. It was just like you didn't want to be that kid that didn't, have your own license to be able to drive yourself around. But now, you know what I mean? You see parents driving their kids, to school every day. The car, the drop off lanes at the schools are ridiculous. Never seen nothing like that when, the way it is now when I was growing up, where the traffic in the neighborhood comes to a screeching halt because there's so many parents taking their kids to school every day, and which is kind of understandable because things are so bad. You can't risk letting your kids walk to school now because they'll disappear. You know what I mean? So um but we all should be praying this: deliver me from the workers of iniquity and save me from bloody men, for lo, they lie in wait for my soul. That's what we're talking about, that there are some people out here in this world that are lying in wait, meaning they're just standing by, patiently waiting, patiently watching. And what are they looking for? They're looking for that one person that that looks like a victim, that weak link, that lady that's not paying attention, that woman that's leaving the store at night with her car parked all the way across the parking lot in the dark, with her cell phone on her ear, talking to somebody on the phone, her purse in one hand, her pushing the shopping cart with the other hand. Then she gets to the car and she's flipping through her purse, trying to talk on the phone, holding the phone with her ear and her shoulder, not paying attention. That's what they're looking for. They're lying in wait. They're looking for an easy victim, somebody that's not paying attention, somebody that they know will be easy to grab, that won't put up a fight, someone they could get the jump on. The same thing with men, because there are a lot of, believe it or not, there are a lot of men going missing nowadays. A lot. Almost just as many men as women are disappearing now. And nobody seems to make it a big deal, which it should be. Excuse me, but there are men that are being snatched up and grabbed into white vans, bridled, just like women. Okay. So you got to be, as a man, you need to be careful also, because there are those that are lying in wait, as he says, for lo, they lie in wait for my soul. The mighty are gathered against me, not for my transgression, nor for my sin, O Lord. Yeah, these people are not out there because of your transgressions or because of your sins. They're not out here to punish you for something bad you've done. They're just wicked. Some of them are just doing it just for the fun of it. Some of them have other motives. It could be for money. You know what I mean? It could be for their own pleasure. Well, whatever the situation is, they're out there. Okay, and it's not to put fear into anybody. It's to bring awareness to you that there are some people out here in this world that they wake up every day, just like we wake up every day to go to work. They wake up every day to go do mischief, to go do harm to somebody. All right. So you got to keep that in mind. It says they run and prepare themselves without my fault, await to help me, and behold. So keep that in mind. Keep keep your prayers up to the Lord and keep a watchful eye. All right. Let's go to Isaiah 55, and you're going to read verses 6 through 8.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 55 and verse 6. Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call ye upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord.
All right. And this is for our people out there that have that thought in them that they're going to do their own will. I'm just going to do me. You see, that's the thought that's put out into the world, and our people eat it up. Just do you. What does that mean? That you don't care what anybody else says, you don't care what anybody else does, you don't care about God, you don't care about other men, women, children, nothing. All you care about is you getting what you want. You're going to do your own will, you're going to do your own thing. Okay? And he's telling us, seek ye the Lord while he may be found. You better, whatever thoughts you may have like that, you better let them go. All right? Because us without our God, we're nothing. Us without the law, statutes, commandments, and judgments of the Lord, we're nothing. Absolutely nothing. You so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, without the keeping of God's commandments, we're nothing. We're a joke. All right. So you need to seek Him while he can be found, while He's given us a chance to repent. All right. He says, "Call ye upon Him while He is near." Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return unto the Lord. It's time for our people to let go of all this unrighteousness and return back to our Father. Because, like we just said, without Him, we're nothing. All right? That's why we get treated as nothing in this society. Goes on to say, and He will have mercy upon him, and to our God, for He will abundantly pardon. So if you want mercy from the Lord, you want Him to pardon your sins, you need to return. Return to what? Return back to your nationality. Return back to the heritage that He gave us. And that heritage are the scriptures. That's our heritage. Okay? Come back to being an Israelite, living your life as an Israelite. Come out of the world. Come out of following what these other nations have taught us. Okay? It says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord." But they're supposed to be. Our ways are supposed to be in line with our Father's ways. We're supposed to be walking the same walk He does, talking the same talk. But unfortunately, again, being here in captivity, our enemies have different plans for us. They want to see us fail. Okay? Let's go to the book of Tobit. You're going to go to Tobit chapter 4, and you're going to read verse 5. Where is it? Oh, there we go.
The book of Tobit, chapter 4 and verse 5. My son, be mindful of the Lord our God all thy days, and let not thy will be set to sin or to transgress his commandments. Do uprightly all thy long thy. I'm gonna read that again. Hold on. My son, be mindful of the Lord our God all thy days, and let not thy will be set to sin, or transgress his commandments. Do uprightly all thy life long, and following not the way of unrighteousness.
All right, so he's very clear here, talking to his son. My son, be mindful of the Lord our God all thy days. That's what we're telling you right now. Be mindful of the Lord our God all your days. You should be meditating on his commandments day and night. You should be studying. You should be applying. You should be praying. You should be fasting, doing all the things that are needed in order to cleanse ourselves and bring ourselves back to him. All right. And it says, and let not thy will be set to sin. Because if we leave it to ourselves to do our own will, our will is going to have us in sin. Why is that? Because it's the easiest thing, especially if you don't know the commandments, you don't know the law. You're going to basically follow along with the rest of society and find yourself caught up in sin, breaking the Lord's commandments. All right. So, my son, be mindful of the Lord our God all thy days, and let not thy will be set to sin or to transgress his commandments. Okay, we got to keep that in mind. We cannot allow ourselves to have a mindset where, it's just easy for us to break the commandments. Okay, especially to be able to break them and not have any remorse, not even pray for forgiveness, not even try and pray and repent at all, whatsoever. We cannot have that mindset. Okay, if you do happen to sin, you do happen to break a commandment, you've got to have a mind to where you feel awful about it. You know what I mean? To where you are going to be in prayer asking for forgiveness. And I mean in sincerity, not just to get it out the way to say, oh Lord, forgive me. You know what I mean? That's Christianity, where just about everything they do is insincere. There's no sincerity behind it. Okay. So you got to keep that in mind. It says, do uprightly all thy life long and follow not the ways of unrighteousness. Why should we not follow the ways of unrighteousness? First John, we were at Tobit 4 and 5. I don't know why it didn't switch. Let's go to First John 5 and 17.
The book of First John, chapter 5 and verse 17. All unrighteousness is sin, and where is a sin not unto death.
All unrighteousness is sin, and there is a sin not unto death. So the question I just asked again is, why should we not follow the ways of unrighteousness? Because as we're reading, all unrighteousness is sin. It doesn't matter how small it is or how great it is. It's sin. Okay, even as Christ told us, he that breaks even one of these least commandments, he shall be the least in the kingdom of God. All right, we got to keep these precepts in mind. All right. So whether it's one of the greatest sins, one of the least sins, no matter what, whichever one you break, you're a sinner. You are in sin. Okay. And all of us have committed sin, and all of us are committing sin in some way. All right. And we've got to repent. Okay. Let's go to Romans 1. You're going to read verses 17 through, I started verse 16. I don't know why I put 17. And read through 32.
32. Okay.
So it's going to be 16. I'm just switching it. I put 17. Come on now. Why is it? Oh. There you go.
Okay. The book of Romans, chapter 1 and verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jews first, and also to the Greeks. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them. For God had showed unto him, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse, because that when they knew God, they glorify him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolishness, uh, hearts was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images
Incorruptible God.
made incorruptible God, and exchanged the
I said
glory of the
uncorruptible. I said it wrong too. Uncorruptible God.
okay, uncorruptible. Here we go, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible. Can you read that one for me?
All right. And change the
23.
glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like the corruptible man, into birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Wherefore,
Uh,
God also.
I got it from there. Verse
Okay.
24. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worship this and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burn in their lust one towards another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meant. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, hatreds of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covetous breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who know the judgment of God, that they which committed such things are worthy of death. Not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them.
But have pleasure in them that do them. So again, that list of sins that are falling under this umbrella of all unrighteousness, we're dealing with murder today. All right. Um, so let's do this. We're going to start off with the definition of murder, because a lot of people really don't have a clear understanding of what murder is. according, to the law and definitions. So let me stop sharing here. We're going to be going over some things for a little bit. So we go back here. Present. Share screen. Share. All right, it's there. So the definition of murder: the unlawful premeditated killing of one human being by another. All right, synonyms, similar words: killing, homicide, assassination, liquidation, extermination. All right, that's the definition we're looking for. A very difficult or unpleasant task or experience. Um, a group of crows. All right, let's go to Merriam-Webster and see what they say. So Merriam-Webster, murder as a noun, the crime of unlawfully and unjustifiably killing a person. Okay, something very difficult or dangerous, something outrageous or blameworthy, a flock of crows. As a verb, murder, to kill a person unlawfully and unjustifiably with premeditated malice. Okay, and this is what we want to recognize about some of these other definitions is that um, sometimes the word can be used figuratively, as some of the examples that we're seeing, like something outrageous or blameworthy, um, getting away with murder, or let's say, you're in a competition with somebody, whether, it's football, basketball, boxing, or, track racing, um, an academic, setting, you know what I mean, where you're competing against somebody else and you say, "Oh, I murdered him." It doesn't mean you actually murdered him. It just means you beat him. You won the race. You won the prize. I murdered him. So it can be used figuratively. All right. Um, that's not the definition we're looking for and what we're talking about. We're looking at definition one, definition two. It says to put an end to, destroy, tease or torment, to spoil or ruin, to defeat badly. So as I'm saying, showing was just saying, all right, to commit murder. So we got to keep that in mind that for murder, especially any crimes, especially here in the U.S., um, I know one of the things that I learned in school, studying criminal justice, is that in order for a crime to be a crime, you had to have two elements to it. You had to have act and you had to have the intent. Act and intent. I don't know. That was a long time ago. I don't know if things may have changed. But as far as I remember learning in school, that in order for a crime to be considered an actual crime, you had to be able to show both elements of and the actual act, and you have to be able to prove the intent. Okay. Um, so with murder, to kill a person unlawfully and unjustifiably with premeditated malice, you have to, in order to have that premeditated malice, you've got to be able to prove the intent. Okay, that this person intended, and we're going to show that, and what we're going to read a little bit too, um, about the different degrees of murder and things like that, because that plays a part in it too. Um, Whether it was premeditated, there's different stages that you can read. So let me go there. Hold on one second. Let's go back here. Instead, we're going to go to Wiki. It's showing. Yep, it's there. All right, so here on Wikipedia, murdered and murdering. Murder is the unlawful killing of another human without justification or valid excuse, and committed with the necessary intent. As I was saying earlier, you got to have intent along with the actual act as defined by the law in a specific jurisdiction. And we actually just saw that play out in that recent court case with what's the kid? It's been everywhere. I've tried not to pay too much attention to it because you can see that what they're trying to do right now, they're trying to take this court case and try and make it into another um, O.J. Simpson type thing, um, to where they keep it in the news and get people riled up and everybody, at odds with each other, distracted, while everybody's out here fighting over this court case, just like they did back during the time of OJ. They had, the Edomites were, for the family, the Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown, and you had all the Judah out there, rooting for OJ. They do this stuff purposely. Okay, even during Rodney King, you had the 4 police officers, and you had, of course, all the Edomites on the side of the 4 officers. You had all the Judah, all the so-called blacks out there rooting for, Rodney King, to get his justice. It's the same thing that's going on. I don't know why I can't think of this kid's name right now, but it's the situation that happened in Texas with the high school track um, situation where they were at a track meet. These Edomites, their 2 twin boys, went up to this young so-called black track runner. Um, the stories all over the place. You have some saying that he was invited under the tent. It was raining. Everybody was trying to get out of the rain. Supposedly, he was invited under the tent. He went, sat down. This is this is one aspect of the story that's been out there. He went, sat down. Supposedly, he was talking to people that he knew from the other school that were under the tent. They invited him under, and this other group of boys that were from that school whose tent he was under came up, confronted him. Some things happened where um, he's alleged, well, he's been convicted now to pulled out some kind of a knife and stabbed one of the brothers and unalived him. Everybody's in an uproar over it. I've tried to, I'm not trying, I'm actually staying neutral on it because I want to see real, actual, clear, and I'm talking about clear video evidence before, going either way. Because when it initially happened, I knew after I watched the one twin brother give his account, I knew he was lying. So you couldn't go by what he said. But the other thing that I was looking at was the fact that the kid actually did admit that he did it. Okay. Because at first I kept saying, they keep just saying that he admitted he did it. He said it's not alleged, I did it. Until, I kept saying, okay, did he actually say this, or is it just something that somebody's saying he said? Is there any video evidence? Then finally the video evidence came out, which actually shows that he did actually say that to the cops. That he actually looked at the cop and told him, like, it's not alleged, I did it. So that's absolutely what he said to the cop. All right. So but looking at the video of the actual altercation that has been released, even the clear one, you can't clearly see what's going on under that tent. You can't, what I mean? It is so blurry. It's almost like out of a movie, like you're watching one of these true crime movies where you just see a bunch of movement under the tent, and then you see him pop up, just suddenly just appear out of nowhere. It looks like further up the bleachers, and then starts running. You can't really see it. That's why I say I'm staying neutral on it until I see some clear video that actually shows who's who, who's what, and who did what. Until then, um, I'm staying neutral on it, because on one hand, my initial thoughts was, what is this kid doing showing up? I can't even imagine when I ran track in high school, showing up to the track meet having a knife in my bag. That wasn't happening. Wasn't walking around carrying no knife. You know what I mean? So that was my first thought. Like, why is this kid walking around with a knife in his backpack at a track meet? Who does that? And I still that, and that's still my feeling on it. Like, who does that? You know what I mean? And um, some people are saying, "Oh no, it's a tool that they use to put their spikes on their shoes," and it's like there was a whole different from what I remember. Track shoes, there was a little um, butterfly type thing, that you just put right over the spikes, and you twist it, and you know what I mean? It kind of locked on. You know what I'm talking about? Um,
No.
it's almost like I don't want to say almost like what's that tool called where you like a socket that has, it's like the butterfly thing, and this little thing going down the middle, and the socket goes in, and you use it, you just twist it. Something almost like that for your track shoes. Yeah, from what I remember, I know some people say, "Oh no, they have the knife because there's a tool in the knife that they use to to put on, remove and put their spikes on their shoes." And like as far as I remember, is that the shoes came with the little tool that you use to loosen up the spikes and take them off. You needed to replace them. You used it to tighten it back on. So to me, the thought of a kid being at a track meet having a knife on them, um, it doesn't sit. It doesn't sit with me. You know what I mean? So, but on the other hand, watching the two videos of the two interviews of the brother of the kid that was unalived, he's changed his story a couple of times. His story was different, and especially his story is different than what you see actually happen. Do what you do actually see happen in the video, because the twin brother that you know didn't get unalive, when you watch his interview, he claimed that he was just sitting there. They were just sitting there, and this guy was, sitting in back of him, and he told him, like, why are you under our tent? He started talking reckless, so he stood up, basically, and then he claims then his brother stood up and had his back, and his brother, to have his back, confronted him, and that's when the things happened. He got stabbed. But from what you can make out of the video, that those guys weren't just sitting there. That's not what was happening. They came walking through the gate on a mission, walked right up to the bleachers, and one of them, some people are saying it was the brother, that the actual brother that got interviewed, that was the one that actually walked up and confronted him first, because he was trying to claim it was his brother. In another interview, he claimed it was the brother that confronted him first. So you can, like I said, you could tell from the interviews that this brother is lying. Um, But that's, besides the point. The fact of the matter is, at a track meet, there shouldn't have been. Uh, I don't know. I just look back to when I ran track. Football, on one hand, you could, fights happen. You know what I mean? Rough housing and stuff like that happened. That was the nature of the sport. But at a track meet, I remember, being at big track meets, multiple schools, and you never had nothing like that happening at a track meet. You know what I mean? Never. Back in my time, I can't remember one time where you heard of at a track meet where people got into an argument, people got into a fight or anything. If anything, everybody was cool with each other. You know what I mean? Everybody was talking, hanging out, like, hey, you know what? Maybe there might be some light banter going on, like, I'm gonna get you this time. Oh no, man, you got me. Like, I'm gonna get you this time. You know what I mean? A little going back and forth like that, but it was all in fun. Never things have changed. That that unfortunately this kid shouldn't have happened. That basically that's my outlook at it. Everything that happened at that track meet shouldn't have never happened. You know what I mean? If it was actually, because from what I saw in the video, I couldn't tell if it was rain. It didn't look like it would look like it was cloudy. Looked like it may have been cold, but it didn't look like, at that particular time that it was pouring rain. You can't tell. It doesn't look like it to me from what I've seen in the video that at that particular time that it was actually pouring rain. Um, but again, it's something that should have never happened. Regardless of who said what first, who pushed who first, who started what first. Um, Things should have never escalated to the point to where a weapon was brought out and a kid lost his life. Regardless, you know what I mean? If it was an Edomite kid, whether it was, one of our kids, it should have never happened. Never should have happened. Um, and that again brings brings back to, the wickedness of Esau sports and what it does to our people. Um, but again, the intent was what I'm bringing this all up about. In that situation, I can't. Oh my gosh, I know he has the same name as a retired basketball player. I can't even think of the name. All right, but
Uh,
the kid that got convicted, he has the same name. I know as a ex NBA player, but I can't remember which name it is. But the thing is that in order to.
Anthony, Carmelo Anthony.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, Carmelo Anthony. That's it. It's just spelled different, I believe, right?
Yeah,
'Cause I believe the actual Carmelo Anthony is CAR, and I believe his is like KHAR or something like that.
right.
Uh, so yeah, Carmelo Anthony. There you go. And I know a lot of people, are up in arms about it. That they're using it to divide us, and and have, like they always do, so-called blacks and so-called whites at odds with each other over this court case. Um, and you can say, yeah, they railroaded him into a 35-year prison sentence, because based on what you see in that video and what was actually brought out in court, there's really no way that you can um, find the intent of actual, premeditated murder in what happened. You know what I mean? Um, So, like I said, it may be manslaughter. You know what I mean? It should have been brought down, but that was never going to happen. They wanted to give him the maximum. They wanted to throw him under the jail, put him under the jail and throw away the key. Um, but again, you have one kid lost his life and another kid's lost his life. You have two kids that have lost their lives. Supposedly he was, just about ready to leave off and go to college and get an education and try and do, some good things for his parents' name, and it's all gone now. You know what I mean? So we'll probably never know the truth unless there is a video floating around out there that one of these kids took from up under that tent that they're just not showing. We'll never actually know, because like I said, from what I could see in that video, with even the clear video, it was so blurry, so far away. All you saw was a bunch of shadows moving around, looked like a 1980s video game, where you could see a lot of commotion going on, but you really can't see what was going on. And then next thing you know, you just see, like I said, it's like a movie. See this figure suddenly just appear from under the tent, look around, and take off running. You know what I mean? It's just like, how can anybody watch this video and really know what happened? About the only thing that I can see that probably that Carmelo did that hurt him, that got him convicted, that the jurors probably couldn't look away from, is the same thing I'm having a problem looking away from, is the fact that somebody didn't teach him to keep his mouth closed. That he got himself convicted the moment he said, "It's not alleged, I did it." That's realistically, even if it would have been a all black jury, that was unbiased. Just the fact of him saying that, you've convicted yourself already. That's why you have a right to remain silent. Shouldn't have never opened his, and that's one of the problems um, with our people, is that parents are not teaching their kids how to just keep your mouth closed. Just shut up. Just be quiet. No matter what the situation is, you have a right to remain silent. No matter how much bullying, no matter how much, these officers may get in your face, whatever the case is, you have a right to remain silent. You don't have to say nothing to them. And that's what saddens me about that part of the situation, that, man, if he had known better, somebody had taught him better, that the moment the police showed up, slapped them handcuffs on him, he shouldn't have said nothing. Nothing. So they actually got him on camera saying it. It's not alleged. I did it. I don't know if, and that's the thing, is that we don't know the context of what, why he said it. You know what I mean? Um, when he said it's not alleged, I did it. I honestly don't know how you come back from it. You know what I mean? Um, so keep that in mind. Keep your mouth closed. My wife hears, we watch some of these true crime shows, you know what I mean, where they take people into those interrogation rooms, and I'd be livid, be like, man, shut up.
Right.
Like, keep your mouth closed. Like, you're just telling on yourself. You know what I mean? To get into the room and they just start talking and talking and talking and talking. And the officers are loving it. And it's like, have you not figured out yet that they're not there to help you? They just read you your rights. Anything you say can and it will be used against you in a court of law. Shut up. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Our people love to talk. Um, but again, that element of intent is it's supposed to be very important when it comes to proving a crime, the act as well as the intent. But we're seeing nowadays that intent part of it is kind of being thrown out the window. All right. So let's read some more. It says, "Murder is the unlawful killing of another human without justification or valid excuse, and committed with the necessary intent as defined by the law in a specific jurisdiction. This state of mind may, depending upon the jurisdiction, distinguish murder from other forms of unlawful homicide, such as manslaughter." I mentioned that a second ago. So, homicide is an act in which a person causes the death of another person. A homicide requires only a volitional act or an omission that causes the death of another, and thus a homicide may result from accidental, reckless, or negligent acts, even if there is no intent to cause harm. And that's what I was talking about earlier, that when it goes to the law, that there are different elements of murder. You see, we're saying that there's homicide. In murder, you've got to have show the intent. You got to be able to have the act and intent. With homicide, um, you don't have to prove any intent to have, been able to cause the harm. All right. Manslaughter says, such as manslaughter is a term in common law for homicide considered less culpable than murder. The distinction between murder and manslaughter is sometimes said to have first been made by the ancient Athenian lawmaker Draco in the 7th century BC. All right. And it's funny that these kids are running around talking about these Draco guns and don't even realize that the stupid gun that they're running around worshiping is named after, this ancient Athenian so-called lawmaker Draco. It's crazy. It says manslaughter is killing committed in the absence of malice. Okay, such as in the case of voluntary manslaughter. It says voluntary manslaughter is the killing of a human in which the offender acted in the heat of passion, a state that would cause a reasonable person to become emotionally or mentally disturbed to the point that they cannot reasonably control their emotions. That's a situation like a man coming home from work, finding his wife in bed with another man. And, just in that act of anger, run up and start beating the man. And, next thing you know, the man's not moving anymore. Um, It says, such as in the case of voluntary manslaughter brought about by reasonable provocation or diminished capacity. Involuntary manslaughter, where it is recognized, is a killing that lacks all but the most attenuated guilty intent, recklessness. All right, guilty intent. In criminal law, mens rea is the mental state of a defendant who is accused of committing a crime. In common law jurisdiction, most crimes require proof both of mens rea and actus reus before the defendant can be found guilty. All right, that's the act and intent. Okay, that's what that's talking about. I remember learning about all of that in class in school. All right. Says most societies consider murder to be an extremely serious crime and thus believe that a person convicted of murder should receive harsh punishments for the purposes of retribution, deterrence, rehabilitation, or incapacitation. In most countries, a person convicted of murder generally receives a long-term prison sentence, a life sentence, or a capital punishment. All right. Some countries, states, and territories, including the United Kingdom and other countries with English derived common law, mandate life imprisonment for murder, whether it is subdivided into first-degree murder or otherwise. All right. We'll skip over the etymology. So go to the definition. It says the 18th century English jurist William Blackstone, in his Commentaries on the Laws of England, set out the common law definition of murder, which by this definition occurs when a person of sound memory and discretion unlawfully kills any reasonable creature in being and under the king's peace with malice aforethought, either express or implied. At common law, murder was normally punishable by death. Okay, no different than what we read about in the Bible. Okay, the elements of common law murder are unlawful killing, through criminal act or omission of a human by another human with malice aforethought. So I just wanted to go down that list. So first, the unlawful, the elements of common law murder are unlawful. This distinguishes murder from killings that are done within the boundaries of law, such as capital punishment, justified self-defense, or the killing of enemy combatants by lawful combatants, as well as causing collateral damage to non-combatants during a war. All right. Killing at common law life ended with cardiopulmonary arrest, the total and reversible cessation of blood circulation and respiration. With advances in medical technology, courts have adopted irreversible cessation of all brain function as marking the end of life. So basically, you take somebody and put them in a rear naked choke, and you choke them out, and you cause that cardiopulmonary arrest. You call them to, no longer there's arteries running through your neck right here, and that's what you're cutting off when you're putting that your bicep and your forearm right up against the sides of their neck. This is cutting off the right here in the throat. I can't get the name out right now, but that's the squeeze. You've got your hand up on the bicep, bringing that hand in back of their head, and you start to shrug the shoulders, which starts to lift up the arm into the neck even further, cutting off the circulation. And if done right, it could take less than 4 seconds for you to have somebody pass out. You got to be real careful with that. All right. But that's basically, what that's talking about. You're cutting off that blood circulation, that respiratory. It's basically a choke. All right. Through criminal act or omission, killing can be committed by an act or an omission. I just want to double check that you're actually seeing what I'm reading. All right. Of a human, it says this element presents the issue of when life begins. At common law, a fetus was not a human being. Life began when the fetus passed through the vagina and took its first breath. Okay. Today, that's different, or at least here in the United States. We know life begins the moment the moment that seed hits the egg. All right. It says by another human, in early common law, suicide was considered murder. The requirement that the person killed be someone other than the perpetrator excluded suicide from the definition of murder. With malice aforethought, originally malice aforethought carried its everyday meaning, a deliberate and premeditated prior intent killing of another motivated by ill will. Murder necessarily required that an appreciable time pass between the formation and execution of the intent to kill. The courts broadened the scope of murder by eliminating the requirement of actual premeditation and deliberation, as well as true malice. All that was required for malice aforethought to exist is that the perpetrator act with one of the 4 states of mind that constitutes malice. In contrast with manslaughter, murder requires the mental element known as malice aforethought. Mitigating factors that weigh against a finding of intent to kill, such as loss of control or diminished responsibility, may result in reduction of a murder charge to voluntary manslaughter. the four states of mind recognized as constituting malice are. So what they're telling is that there's um, four different elements, four different states of mind that a person could have that they could look at to say, okay, you did this with malice. All right. The first one is intent to kill. You flat out, your only intent is that you know what, I'm taking their life. Um, you hear that with gang members all the time and things like that. Like, you know what, man, I'm gonna take him out over stupid stuff. It could be over something dumb, but you can't get away from the fact that that you committed murder and that you had the intent, because especially nowadays you got these dumb kids writing these rap songs and making music videos showing that they have this intent to want to unalive somebody. Shows intent. Okay. um, Number two, intent to inflict grievous bodily harm short of death. Reckless indifference to an unjustifiably high risk to human life, sometimes described as the abandoned and malignant heart. All right. Intent to commit a dangerous felony. Okay. The felony murder doctrine. So let's say you're in the midst of committing an armed robbery and you don't even actually shoot the person. The person has a heart attack out of fear and they end up dying. Okay. That's what that's talk. Something like that. Intent to commit a dangerous felony. Okay. Um, the third one, reckless indifference to an unjustifiably high risk to human life. I'd say that would be something like what's that girl's name? Well, see, they were able to prove her intent was to actually really kill her boyfriend and the friend. This girl that's been in the news, I can't think of her name either, but she there's a documentary on YouTube about her. She was driving with her boyfriend and her boyfriend's friend in the back seat of the car. She drove down the street, high rate of speed. I think they said she hit 90 something. Instead of hitting the curb, she went straight into a brick wall and killed both her boyfriend and his friend in the car. At first, they thought it was an accident, which she tried to claim, but they later realized that no, she actually intended to do it. Her intent was to actually um, unalive. She was looking at unaliving everybody in the car, including herself. From what they were able to gather, the fact that her boyfriend was trying to break up with her, he wanted to leave her and all this stuff. Um, but let's say it's another situation where there's say it's a group of boys. You're a young kid. You got your license. You got your friends in the car with you, and you're just driving reckless. You're just driving fast, just having a good time. And not having any thought that what you're doing is reckless, and you could have an accident. And he, almost, let's say it's the same road, same situation, that he intends to go around the curve, but going at that high rate of speed, he loses control and hits the brick wall. Okay. He wasn't intending to kill anybody. He was just out having fun. He's just being reckless. All right. That's what it is, a reckless indifference. He was having a reckless indifference to the fact that what he was doing was dangerous. Okay. And same situation, hit the brick wall and ends up killing everybody in the car except himself. That's what that's all, reckless indifference to an unjustifiably high risk to human life. He was indifferent to it. He didn't, it wasn't a thought in his mind that what he was doing was reckless. He was just having fun with his friends. All right. So that's what that third one is talking about. You just scroll up. It says, under state of mind, intent to kill, the deadly weapon rule applies. Thus, if the defendant intentionally uses a deadly weapon or instrument against the victim, such use authorizes a permissive inference of intent to kill. Examples of deadly weapons and instruments include, but are not limited to, guns, knives, deadly toxins or chemicals or gases, and even vehicles when intentionally used to harm one or more victims. So you can use just about anything as a deadly weapon. Yeah, let's say you're in a fight, you're losing, you pick up a big rock and use it and slam it up against this person's head and they die, you're done for. Okay, that now that rock that was just sitting there on the ground has now become a deadly weapon. Well, let's say it's a stick. A tree branch fell off and was laying there on the ground. You're losing the fight, and you pick up that tree branch and start hitting them with it in the head, and they end up dying. That tree branch has now become a deadly weapon. Um, just about anything that you use in that manner that causes someone to die, that could be considered a deadly weapon. Like what it's saying here, a motor vehicle. Sometimes people get offended when they hear about, like, you know what, they drove their car towards the police officers and the officers opened fire on them. Well, they opened fire for a reason, because at that moment that vehicle could be used as a deadly weapon. You're driving right at the officers. Whether you intend to actually hit them or not, they don't know. You know what I mean? You've seen situations like that many times. Um, so that's the kind of thing that it's talking about. Let me see. So right here, it says, under state of mind, an abandoned and malignant heart, the killing must result from the defendant's conduct involving a reckless indifference to human life and a conscious disregard of an unreasonable risk of death or serious bodily injury. In Australian jurisdictions, the unreasonable risk must amount to a foreseen probability of death or grievous bodily harm in most states, as opposed to possibility. That goes back to what I was talking about the teenager in the car. And he's just out having a good time. He's not even, thinking about the fact that, he can end up rolling that car. All right. Under state of mind, the felon murder doctrine, the felony committed must be an inherently dangerous felony, such as burglary, arson, rape, robbery, or kidnapping. Importantly, the underlying felony cannot be a lesser included offense, such as assault. Otherwise, all criminal homicides would be murder, as all are felonies. Okay. In Spanish criminal law, let's say assassinato. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Assassinato.
Asesinato.
Assassinato.
Yeah.
So literally, assassination takes place when any of these requirements concur. Treachery, the use of means to avoid risk for the aggressor to ensure that the crime goes unpunished, price or reward, financial gain or viciousness, deliberately increasing the pain of the victim. After the last reform of the Spanish Criminal Code enforced since July 1st, 2015, another circumstance that turns homicide into assassination is desire to facilitate the commission of another crime or to prevent it from being discovered. As with most legal terms, the precise definition of murder varies between jurisdictions and is usually codified in some form of legislation. Even when the legal distinction between murder and manslaughter is clear, it is not unknown for a jury to find a murder defendant guilty of the lesser offense. The jury might sympathize with the defendant in a crime of passion, or in the case of a bullied victim who kills their tormentor. And the jury may wish to protect the defendant from a sentence of life imprisonment or execution. All right. And that's what most people, I think, were expecting in the Carmelo Anthony situation, that they thought that the jury at least would have had um, some sympathy towards him that, he was supposedly getting jumped, and it was an act of self-defense. But for whatever reason, the jury didn't give him that. All right. So the degrees, this is what I was mentioning earlier. So there's different degrees of murder. So it says murder in the second degree and premeditated murder redirect here. For the album, see murder in the second degree. For the film, see premeditated murder. These are talking about movies. It says some jurisdictions divide murder by degrees. The distinction between first and second degree murder exists. For example, in Canadian murder law and U.S. murder law, some U.S. states maintain the offense of capital murder. All right, so let's capital murder. Capital murder refers to a category of murder in some parts of the U.S. for which the perpetrator is eligible for the death penalty. In its original sense, capital murder was a statutory offense of aggravated murder in Great Britain, Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland, which was later, and I'm not going to click on it to read the whole thing. All right. It says the most common division is between first and second degree murder. Now, because a lot of people, and I'm going to tell you, if you've never sat on a jury before, how I
Nope.
put it, from doing jury duty, it made me really aware that the last thing I ever want to do is get caught up in the United States judicial system and have to put my life in the hands of 12 strangers. Because when you look at how they choose the jurors, and then not only choose the jurors, and you see what kind of people sometimes end up on these juries. And then if you've never actually sat in a deliberation on a jury before, to see how people allow their emotions to reign supreme over following what's actually written in the law is scary. It's real scary. Um, and my wife always asks me, like, why are you always getting chosen for jury duty? Why are you always getting these? It seems like for whatever reason, almost it never fails. What is it, 18 months, I believe, or is it 12 months? Well, I can't remember how many months it is, but that you get a jury summons. It's right on the dot. Boom, jury summons, jury summons, jury summons. I remember one time I got to sit on a grand jury for an entire week in Stockton.
Mhm.
Man, it was a real eye opener, real eye opener. Again, made me realize that really realize, that no, I don't ever want to find myself in a position to where I'm in a courthouse and relying on any of these people sitting here to have my life in their hands. Like, nah, no, 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 no. Because, uh, man, just the different demographics of people, you know what I mean? You have people from almost just about every walk of life. And then you got people that get put on the jury that don't even want to be there. It's a scary thing to have somebody sitting in the jury room that's just like, you know what, man, I don't even want to be here. Let's just get this over with. Like, I don't care. This is how I'm voting, and I'm not changing my vote. And you're sitting there looking at them like, are you serious? You got somebody's life in your hands. We need to look at the law. You know what I mean? We've got to make sure that there are people on these juries that don't care. They don't want to be there, and they've already made up their mind from jump. Don't care what was said, and during the trial, whether it was from the defense side, or from the plaintiff side or the prosecution side, they don't care. They don't. They don't care. Um, and like I said, it's a real scary thing. And then, to just have people come in that have their prejudices, and it's not always racial. Whatever it is, you just have some people that just don't like criminals. They don't like criminal behavior. And just the fact that you're there, you're automatically a criminal to them. So they're going to vote you guilty. No matter what is said in that trial, you're there. They arrested you for a reason, so you're guilty. You're going to jail. There are people that sit in these juries that think that way, and it's scary. It's really scary. Um, and then again, the what is it I'm looking for? You get some not so bright people on these juries. You know what I mean? People that I'm trying not to say low IQ, but that's the only way you could really. You got some people with low IQs on these juries. You know what I mean? That no matter how much you explain to them, no matter what is read, they don't understand it. Don't understand it. And so, what are they going to rely on? Their feelings and emotions, and that's how they're going to vote. All right. Um, like I said, being especially that time, being on a grand jury for an entire week, and sitting in there, um, and just listening to some of the people in the room, just full of emotion, and you know just ready and willing to just send somebody off to prison just because. And there's nothing you can say, nothing you can do to change their mind. It's scary. It's real scary. Um, so where are we at? We're at degrees. All right. It says, I'll start here again. The most common divisions between first and second degree murder, generally second degree murder is common law murder, and first degree is an aggravated form. The aggravating factors of first degree murder depend on the jurisdiction, but may include a specific intent to kill, premeditation, or deliberation. And some murders committed by acts such as strangulation, poisoning, or lying in wait are also treated as first degree murder. A few states in the US further distinguish third degree murder. So in the United States, the law for murder varies by jurisdiction. In many US jurisdictions, there is a hierarchy of acts known collectively as homicide, of which first degree murder and felony murder are the most serious, followed by second degree murder and a few states third degree murder. All right. It says, but they differ significantly in which kinds of murders they classify as second degree. Vis-a-vis third degree, for example, Minnesota and Pennsylvania define third degree murder as depraved heart murder. So depraved heart murder, says in United States law, depraved heart murder, also known as depraved indifference murder, or extreme indifference murder is a type, or extreme indifference murder is a type of murder where an individual acts with a depraved indifference to human life and where such acts results in a death. So that's going back again to that situation about the kid in the car. They're not really thinking about their act or whatever it is they're doing as being dangerous. There was a situation, it was years ago, where this group of girls, they were on a bridge, and I can't remember if they were actually jumping in the water or if they were bungee jumping. I can't remember exactly what they were doing, but one of the girls got up on the bridge, and then she changed her mind. She got scared, and she was getting ready to climb back over. She was like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. She changed her mind. And as she was about to, completely just climb back over, her friend pushed her. Okay. And I can't remember. I don't think she died, but I think she got hurt real bad, but I can't remember if she died or not. Um, I don't think she died. If I remember correctly, I don't think she died. Um, but in a situation like that, her friend didn't take the time to think that, you know, you could cause somebody, you could cause somebody to lose their life by doing something like that. You know what I mean? She didn't want to do it. She was scared. She was changing her mind. And then you're just gonna go and push her in, okay, and push her and pushed her off the bridge. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Yeah, here we go. Let me share this tab instead. Let me know when you see it. There we go.
There it is.
So
Yeah.
it's teen sentence after pushing friend off 60-foot bridge. A Washington teenager, Taylor Smith, was sentenced to 2 days in county jail and 38 days. I don't think her friend died. And 38 days of community work after pleading guilty to reckless endangerment for shoving her 17-year-old friend, Jordan Holgerson, off a 60-foot bridge at Moulton Falls Regional Park on August 7, 2019. The incident, says the shove captured in a 10-second cell phone video that went viral, caused Holgerson to fall over 50 feet into the water below. She suffered 6 broken ribs and punctured lungs. In court, Holgerson described the fall as a nightmare, saying she feared she would die when being pulled from the water and watched her body turn blue. Clark County District Court Judge Darvin Zimmerman sentenced Smith to 2 days in jail, 38 days of community work, a $300 fine, no contact with Holgerson for 2 years. Zimmerman told Smith, I think you need to do some jail time. Prosecutors had initially recommended no jail time, but the judge overruled that, citing the severity of the injuries in the victim's account. She should have got more. She should have got at least 6 months to a year, because that girl could have died. And I believe this may be the video. Let me see. Um, oh, here it is. Or is that just a picture? Or just the pictures, not the video. Let me see. Is this a picture of the video? It's another picture. Let's see if this one has it. She got off easy because for that, it was reckless endangerment. And But you see how they treat our kids compared to their kids. If that would have she would have been black, she would have got at least 6 months to a year. She wouldn't have got off with 2 days in jail. Um, but that's that kind of thing. If the girl would have died, that's something that could have been considered as third degree murder. She didn't intend to kill her friend. She was just it was a reckless act. She was indifferent to the fact of the danger that was involved of pushing her friend off the bridge the way she did. All right. So she's lucky she didn't die. So that's that third degree. And we read it again. It says, but they differ significantly in which kinds of murders they classify as second degree, third degree. For example, Minnesota, Pennsylvania define third degree murder as depraved heart murder. And the depraved heart murder says the United States law, depraved heart murder, also known as depraved indifference murder. Extreme indifference murder is a type of murder where an individual acts with a depraved indifference to human life and where such acts result in a death. So if that girl had died, if she was in a state to where they have third degree murder, she could have easily fell under that third degree murder if that had happened. Says some jurisdiction also distinguish premeditated murder. This is the crime of wrongfully and intentionally causing the death of another human being, also known as murder, after rationally considering the timing or method of doing so. So that's the premeditation. You basically planned it. You got it all, step by step in order. It says in order to either increase the likelihood of success or to evade detection or apprehension. Says state laws in the United States vary as to definitions of premeditation. In some states, premeditation may be construed as taking place mere seconds before the murder. Premeditated murder is one of the most serious forms of homicide and is punished more severely than manslaughter or other types of homicide, often with a life sentence without the possibility of parole, or in some countries, the death penalty. In the US, federal law criminalizes premeditated murder, felony murder, and second degree murder committed under situations where federal jurisdiction applies. In Canada, the criminal code classifies murder as either first or second degree. The former type of murder is often called premeditated murder, although premeditation is not the only way murder can be classified as first degree. In the Netherlands, the traditional strict distinction between premeditated and intentional killing classed as murder, moord, and non-premeditated intentional killing, manslaughter, doodslag, is maintained when differentiating between murder and manslaughter. It says when differentiating between murder and manslaughter. The only relevant factor is existence or not of premeditation, rather than the existence or not of mitigating or aggravated factors. Manslaughter, non-premeditated intentional killing with aggravating factors, is punished more severely, but is not classified as murder because murder is an offense which always requires premeditation. All right. Um, so we're going to skip down to this part here. We're going to read it later on. It has to do with something else we're going to touch on later in the lesson. So let's go back to the scriptures. Share screen, share, undo. There you go. All right. So we got somewhat of an understanding of what murder is as far as being here in the United States. But now we're going to read about according to the Bible. And what you're going to find is that some of the things that we were just reading about as far as the different classifications of murder it basically comes from the Bible. Okay. There are different classifications of murder in the Bible, just not on the level of what we're reading right here. Okay. So we're going to go to the scriptures and see what the Bible says. All right. Number one was simple. Let's go to Exodus 20 and 3. Oh, not Exodus 20. I'm sorry, bro. Not Exodus 20 and 3. It's Exodus 20 and 13. Hold on.
The book of Exodus, chapter 20.
Let me fix that. All right. Go ahead.
The book of Exodus, chapter 20, and verse 13. Thou shalt not kill.
Which is just plain and simple. Thou shalt not kill. So the Lord tells us that we should not be taking the life of others. Okay. Let's go to Exodus 21 and 14. We'll get through these pretty quick. Exodus 21 and 14.
The book of Exodus, chapter 21, and verse 14. But if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor to lay him with guile, thou shalt take him from mine altar that he may die.
All right. So this is somewhat the same thing as what we're just reading about the premeditated murder. Okay. It's something that you've planned. It's something that you're doing with malice. It's something that, you know, you've planned the actual, you have the intent to have the outcome of this person being unalive. You've completely planned out step by step how you're going to do it. And the Lord says, but if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile, thou shalt take him from mine altar that he may die. So what you're going to find is the same thing in the Bible. The punishment for murder was that you had to die yourself. Okay. So let's go to Exodus 21 and 20.
The book of Exodus, chapter 21, and verse 20. And if a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall be surely punished.
So what we're going to start seeing now is kind of the same thing that we were just reading, that now um, you're coming into the element of committing this crime of murder using an object, all right, or what we read about as being a deadly weapon. Okay, you're using some kind of an instrument, object, as a weapon in order to commit this crime. Okay, this crime of murder, or to kill or unalive a person. All right. So as it says here, and if a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall be surely punished. Okay, that rod now becoming a deadly weapon, and we're going to see in a minute some other uh, instruments that could be used as weapons at that time. So let's go to Leviticus 24 and 21.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 24, and verse 21. And he talk, and he, hold on, and he that killeth a beast, he shall restore it. And he that killeth a man, he shall be put to death.
All right. And he that killeth the beast, he shall restore it. And he that killeth the man, he shall be put to death. So it's, laying it out clear that the punishment for what we call murder today, or what um, the scriptures is called killing a person, the punishment for it was death, for the person that committed it. Let's go to the book of Numbers. So you're going to go to Numbers 35. And you're going to read verses 16 through 34.
The book of Numbers, chapter 35 and verse 16. And if he smite him with an instrument of iron, so that he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. And if he smite him with throwing a stone wherewith he may die, he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. Or if he smite him with an hand weapon of wood wherewith he may die, he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death.
So
The
what we're seeing here is that the Bible itself lays out, okay, um, the fact that now with the use of these instruments, okay, such as a instrument of iron, it could be anything. It could be a rod of iron, a iron rod, a baseball bat in today's times, a hammer, because that's iron and wood. Um, there are a number of instruments today, tools that can end up being used um, in the commission of a murder. Okay, an instrument of iron. The other one was throwing a stone, like I had mentioned actually earlier. Not actually throwing the stone, but holding it in your hand and cracking them over the head with it. But it's the same thing even here. If you don't keep it in your hand and you actually take that, good size rock and you throw it at somebody, or even you have, let's say, a slingshot, like in the situation with David and Goliath, and you hit them with that stone and they die. Hitting them with that instrument that has now become a deadly weapon, or it says, or a hand weapon of wood. Again, you have metal baseball bats, you have wooden baseball bats. Okay, it could just be like I said, a tree branch that fell off the tree. It's a good sized tree branch. There are some branches that you could pick up that are pretty heavy, and you hit somebody with it, it can cause some damage. All right. Um, so just keep that in mind. The Bible is basically right in line with the definitions of what murder is today, because they got it from the Bible. Okay. Let's continue on from verse 19.
19. The revenger of blood, him himself shall slay the murderer when he meeteth him. He shall slay him. But if he thrust him of hatred, or hurl at him by laying of weight, that he die, or in enmity smite him with his hand, that he die, he that smote him shall surely be put to death, for he is a murderer. Slay the murderer when he is meeteth him. But if he thrust him suddenly without enmity, or have cast upon him anything without laying of weight, or with any stone wherewith a man may die, seeing him not, and cast it upon him, that he die, and was not his enemy, neither sought his harm, then the congregation
Congregation.
congregation yeah and then the congregation shall judge between the silver with the slayer and the revenger, between the slayer and the revenger of blood, according to these judgments.
So this
And the
is kind of going into some of the stuff we were just reading right now. Um, where you're slaying the person, you don't have any enmity, meaning you don't have any hatred towards them, no forethought of it. Um, you're not laying in wait, or you are laying in wait. All of these, same things that we're reading about in the Bible are the same kind of things that we read about on Wikipedia, in the different definitions of murder, in the first degree, second degree, third degree of murder. Okay. Um, as it says, but if he thrust him of hatred, or hurl at him by laying of weight. All right. So those all come down to things that will prove intent or premeditation. Okay. Let's go ahead and read on.
And the congregation shall deliver the slayer out of the hand of the revenger of blood, and the congregation shall restore him to the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and he shall abide in it unto the death of the high priest, which was anointed with the holy oil. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whither he was fled, and the revenger of blood find him without the borders of the city of his refuge, and the revenge of blood kills the slayers, he shall not be guilty of blood, because he should have remained in the city of his refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer shall return into the land of his possession. So these things shall be for a statute of judgment unto you throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Whoso killeth any person, the murderer shall be put to death by the mouth of witnesses, but one witness shall not testify against any person to cause him to die. Moreover, ye shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murder which is guilty of death, but he shall be surely put to death. And ye shall take no satisfaction for him that is fled to the city of his refuge, that he should come again to dwell in the land until the death of the priest. So ye shall not pollute the land where ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell. For I, the Lord, dwell among the children of Israel.
And that's one of the issues with America. America has a lot of blood in its hands. The land of America is defiled with the blood of the children of Israel. You know, there's been so much bloodshed upon the land here, and not just um, in past times, but in modern times. You know, every day we're seeing people's blood being shed out on the streets, people being shot, people being stabbed, um, you know, people being unalive in all kinds of different ways. America, the land itself, is just completely polluted. All right. Um, and as it says, um, in verse 33, so you shall not pollute the land wherein you are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Okay, so that's why Esau is going to have to go. You know, because all the bloodshed he's caused upon the land. All right, let's go to Deuteronomy 19. You're going to read verses 11 through 13.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19 and verse 11. But if any man hate his neighbor and lie in wait for him and rise up against him and smite him mortally, that he die, and fleeth into one of these cities, then the elder of his city shall send and fetch him thence, and deliver him into the hand of the avenger of blood, that he may die. Thine eye shall not pity him, but thou shalt put away the guilt of innocent blood from Israel, that it may go well with thee.
All right. So again, it comes down to that element of hatred. You have hatred towards your neighbor. You're lying in wait. In other words, you have premeditated this. You're waiting. You're going to get the jump on them. It says, "Arise up against him and smite him mortally, that he die, and fleeth into one of these cities." So basically, here in America, there is no safe city for you to run to. If you commit murder here in California and you try to run up to Oregon, that ain't gonna help you. Okay. Unfortunately, here there are no cities of refuge that you can run to. Okay, they're gonna come get you. But back in that time, and during our time in our land, the Lord gave us cities of refuge. That if we did happen to commit one of those offenses, if you fled the city into one of these cities of refuge, you had refuge there until the high priest died. And if you were found out of that city of refuge at any point, you were done for. You know what I mean? It's almost like a bounty hunter. You're outside the city, he sees you outside the city limits, he's free reign on you. There's nothing you can do. Even the scripture said you should stay in the city. Ain't nothing you can do about it. You got caught slipping. That's basically what it comes down to. All right. But what we can see here, though, is that the elements we were just reading about murder, Wikipedia, as far as American law goes, uh, English law, we saw a little bit of some, mentioning Spanish law. Um, all of it comes from the scriptures. All of it comes from the Bible. It's just now in today's modern times, it's just so more in depth. You got so many more elements to it. That's why, basically to really understand American law, you got to go to law school. Because I mean, if you never saw even here in California, if you never seen the California Penal Code book, you think the Bible's a thick book. The California Penal Code book's at least about this thick. So, it takes a lot of study to really get an understanding. That's why what we learn in school, you don't learn anything really about law. You know what I mean? They don't teach you in high school, middle school. They don't really teach you anything at all about actual laws, um, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of weird. So we would just want to keep that in mind. But again, it all came from our Bible. Um, so when we take all of this to today, um, we can see that the murder rate in today's times, and I've said this before, is at an all-time high. What we're seeing going on today is something that we've never seen in our lifetime. I don't want to say that we've never seen, period, because it has happened in the future, and we're going to show that. But as far as in I would say the last couple of hundred, almost couple of 100 years, maybe, um, we haven't seen, crime the way it is now. Especially, there are so many more methods of committing crimes. Technology has improved. Uh, it's so much easier to rob. You don't even have to leave your house anymore to rob somebody, to steal from somebody. Basically, these thieves are so smart they can empty your bank account by the stroke of a keyboard. Okay, just by typing on a keyboard, you can see your whole life savings disappear. All right, you could be walking in a crowd with a backpack on, have your wallet in your backpack, walk by the wrong person, and have your bank account emptied just from them flashing one of those tap readers onto your backpack. A lot of that stuff is happening now. Okay. People are walking through crowds with these card readers and basically tap you on your leg if they think your wallet's in your pocket, or the wallet's in your back pocket, or if it's in your backpack. The reason why they know is because they're watching people. They'll see you go into the store, pull out your wallet, and see where you put it. Like, okay, you put it in his pocket. They'll walk by, tap, and basically through your wallet, through your pants, they've got your information, to go into your bank account. Um, Getting control of somebody's phone. They have ways to hack into your phone nowadays. A lot of people keep a lot of their banking information on their iPhones and things like that. And that's all it takes is for them to send you a, what do you call them, a virus through your phone, and they can get into your bank accounts, you know what I mean, and rob you. So the technology, um, things are increasing. You're starting to hear stories about these groups of kids, because that's mostly who it is. They're committing these home invasions, and they're getting smarter. They bust through the door. The moment they come in contact with somebody, they're spraying them with bear spray to incapacitate you. And from there, now that you're incapacitated because of the bear spray, now they're able to take you down, wrap you up, tie your hands and your legs. Some of this stuff is happening. And that's just because bear spray has lately become something that's very popular among people that like to go hiking. Make sure you've got your bear spray with you. And you could very easily buy a canister of bear spray off Amazon. So, again, as time is going on, technology is increasing. Um, Weapons are are uh, are increasing. You know what I mean? You have all kinds of different um, weapons you can buy nowadays that you wouldn't even know they were weapons. They a pole that looks just like a pole, a cane. You can see somebody walking with a cane, and not knowing that inside that cane, they just take it apart. There's a blade at the end of the cane. Okay. Um, there's a lot of stuff like that. Knives that they look very innocent, just look like a can opener, just like a little tool handle with, they got can openers and stuff on them, little screwdrivers, like a Swiss Army knife, but more, um, what do you call it? I don't want to say more extensive, but a bigger blade than a army knife, a Swiss Army knife. So you want to be careful nowadays. Um, what do you call it? You've got other, like walking sticks that are, basically like rods. Um, there's this new thing that I know, I've seen the commercial on, where it's like a folded up little rod, and then all of a sudden you just like let it go and it pops up and turns into like a bow staff. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of different weapons that that they're coming up with that people are carrying. Um, you don't know who's carrying what nowadays. You got gangbangers walking around with uh, full AK-47 stuffed down their pants because they're wearing baggy pants and pulling them out on people. You know what I mean? Not You wouldn't even think that they have a gun on them. So you got to be real careful out here, okay? But the murder rate and the crime rate itself is getting higher and higher, is getting worse and worse and worse. And like I said, at this point in our lifetime, it's at the worst it's ever been. And it's something that we basically had been warned about in the Bible, okay, that things were going to get bad in this time. Let's go real quick. Let's go to Second Timothy 3. You're going to read verses 1 through 9.
The book of Saint Timothy. The book of Second Timothy, chapter 3, and verse 1. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Now, as Jonas and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds reprobate concerning the faith. But they shall proceed no further, for their folly shall be manifest unto all men, as theirs also was.
All right. So, as we were told that in the last days, perilous times would come. All right. So, let's look up that word perilous. What exactly does that mean? Give me a second. Share screen, share. Perilous meaning. And this is what we're warning you about. Perilous, adjective, full of danger or risk. Dangerous, hazardous, risky, unsafe. So the Bible is telling us this. Know also that in the last days, dangerous times shall come, or hazardous times shall come. Excuse me, risky times shall come, unsafe times shall come. All right. So you got to keep that in mind that we're living in some very dangerous, risky, and unsafe, hazardous times. All right. It's not what people are deceiving themselves into believing that, the world is full of smiles and love. That's not what's going on in this world today. Okay. And as I was saying earlier, when you walk out your doors, you've got to be um, very aware of what's going on around you because the murder rate it's just getting out of hand. It's crazy what's going on right now. Let's look at Merriam-Webster. Perilous, basically to say full of or involving peril. So what is peril? Exposure to the risk of being injured, destroyed, or lost. Danger, something that imperils or endangers. To expose to danger. All right. So you can see all these words basically mean just about the same thing. So again, like I mentioning earlier, that when you walk out your doors, basically almost on a daily basis, you are walking by some of the most cold-blooded, wicked, evil monsters that the world has ever seen, and you wouldn't know it because they look normal. You know what I mean? You got doctors, you got lawyers, you got nurses, you've got people in the tech industry, you got people in all walks of life nowadays walking around, and a lot of these people, they've got mental problems. You may that homeless man or woman out there on the street you see walking around talking to themselves, clothes dirty, looking all messed up. Yeah, you can look at them like, you know what? Yeah, they're out of their mind. There's something wrong with them. But there are some people in this world who are just as out of their mind as they are, but you wouldn't know it because you would look at them and think they're normal. In fact, you might even, look at Some of these women may look at some of these men and be like, ooh, he's fine, he's handsome. And you may have some of these men look at some of the women going, man, she's fine, she look good. And they are a completely total crazy demon. All right. Um, so you've got to be very careful. I'm going to show a video real quick of exactly what I'm talking about. Give me a second. Again, stop sharing. Oh, I didn't have to do that. You just share screen. So I remember the first time I saw this video. Can you see it?
Yes.
All right. So this is a testament to what I'm talking about, that if you hadn't seen or heard this interview and you just saw her, walking down the street or in the grocery store, there's nothing, what's the word I'm looking for? There's nothing extraordinary about her. She just looks like a normal everyday woman. You walking in the grocery store, she walked by you in the store, you wouldn't have a second thought. Wouldn't think nothing of it. But once you hear her in this interview, you let's just play it. You get an idea of what I'm talking about. All right. It's scary that there's somebody like this walking the streets, and again, you would walk by her and you wouldn't even know, wouldn't even think twice about it, that you just passed a wicked demon that under certain circumstances, if you met her at the wrong time, that she would be somebody that would kill you without thought. Okay. Um,
Angela, I've seen previous
can you
interviews
hear it?
with the police,
Yes.
and one of my colleagues talked to you once upon a time. You're very upfront
Pretty much.
about talking about this killing.
Right.
You murdered this man.
Yes,
You tortured him.
of course.
There is
So here how she's just so nonchalant about it. It's like, so you tortured him? Like, of course. No matter, no
Remorse.
remorse. Yeah, remorse. There you go. You took the words right out of my mouth. So no remorse. I was trying to turn up my speaker so I could hear the interview more.
no ambiguity, and there is nothing you want to. In court today, you said you're not here to pretend to be remorseful.
Of course not. Why would I do that?
Listen to her. It's like, of course not. Why would I do that? Like you're saying that you're not remorseful or nothing. Like, no.
Are you remorseful?
Not at all.
Why?
Are you remorseful? Not at all. Not at all. Just look at her. She's just so nonchalant about her answers. Like, no.
Why?
Why would I be?
Well, why did this man deserve to die? You claimed he was a snitch.
Well,
what proof do you have of that?
He told me he was a snitch
He told you.
on many occasions. But that really doesn't matter. Why did you guys want to kill me? Phoenix wanted to kill me. What's the difference? Everybody has a reason to kill.
Listen to her. They're just so nonchalant. Everybody got a reason to kill. Sound like Norman Bates in the crazy movie uh Psycho, Psycho 2. Everybody's got a reason to kill. She's just it's crazy.
My reason might not be good to you, but your reason wasn't good to me. So,
The incident, can you tell me anything about what happened during those 3 days while you were at
what do you
this?
mean?
I
took him to my house, walked him down the street. I don't know why the media acts like the motherfucker couldn't walk. He walked.
Excuse her language also, but she's a demon.
Very well. Walked him upstairs, kicked his ass, and killed him.
And again, your belief is that he was a snitch because he
Right.
told you. You claimed that that other people had been killed in that same part. You had killed other people. Have you killed other people?
No, I've never killed anyone else.
So that was something to talk.
Right.
She lying.
How do you feel about?
Yeah, you could tell she's lying. No, I've never killed anybody else. For her to sit here and just so nonchalant about killing this man, this wasn't her first time. It's her first time getting caught.
Spending the rest of your life in prison?
I got a lot of family in prison, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I got many sisters in prison. I can't wait to see them. It's really not that much of a punishment to be sentenced to spend my life with my family.
And you don't want to talk about your past, but your lawyer said that, you know what, they in sentencing you, the judge should bear in mind that you had a really
Right.
tough life.
I started being hospitalized at 10 years old. I have a mental history from.
So she's saying that from the time she was 10 years old, she's been hospitalized. She's got a history of mental illness. And again, if you saw her out and about, you wouldn't even think, just looking at her, you wouldn't even think that she was a psychopath. It wouldn't even cross your mind. You just think, okay, this woman just passed me on the bread aisle. Wouldn't even think twice about it.
From 10 years old until present. So, yeah.
When you say mental history, I mean, do you care that anyone feels sorry for you? Do you want anybody?
Feel sorry for me?
Yeah. Should the people who are watching this say because she had a bad childhood,
Of course not.
Because she has mental illness?
Of course not. No.
That we should feel some sympathy for you?
No.
You would not have that.
I want no sympathy. No.
What then? Do you care what anybody thinks
No.
about Angela Simpson and what you have done?
I don't.
It's again your candor. I've interviewed people who have committed murders before, and usually they sort of prevaricate or they this or that. You're about as direct as it gets.
Right.
Why is that?
It's only fair. I expect you to be the same way.
Okay. Do you think that it was fair today? It was justice in that courtroom?
No, I don't.
Why?
I should have gotten the death penalty.
Did you want the death penalty?
No.
She's honest. Like, I should have got the death penalty. Do you want the death penalty? No. I'm glad I didn't get the death penalty, but I should have got it. That's basically what she's saying.
No, I'd prefer to spend my life with my sisters, but yeah, I do believe that would have been justice.
So you deserve death penalty, but you're glad that you got what you got.
Right.
Because you.
Right.
When you say your sisters, you're talking about women you know in prison.
Right.
Okay. And have you found that that there is some bonding and that you have made friends here that will be of some comfort to you when you're in prison?
Most definitely, yes.
Most definitely, yes.
Yeah.
What has the experience been like here in this facility?
Horrible.
Really?
Yes, it's terrible. Jail is awful. They don't, they have no, well, they have no compassion. They don't give us the things we need here.
Will prison to your understanding?
I certainly hope so, yes.
Prison? Have you done time in prison?
No.
So you're hoping that it will be a better existence.
Yes,
for you.
definitely.
You're a young woman, 36 years old. You could be there a long time.
Right. Right.
But your belief is that you deserve the death penalty.
Definitely. Well, I believe God. That's what God says. Unless God is wrong, which I doubt. So.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to stop it right there. So she's fully aware and cognizant of the Lord. She says, if that's what God, wanted, but I doubt he's, unless he's wrong, but I doubt he's wrong. So which tells you she knows wrong from right. But again, it goes back to what I was just saying, that you walk by people like this every single day, and you wouldn't even realize that you're dealing with somebody with that much of a demonic heart, demonic spirit. because she's out there. All right, she's like way out there. Um, words can't even explain the demeanor. You know what I mean? Just the lack of emotion, lack of any sympathy, um, no remorse, nothing. She's just like a robot, answering his questions. So, um, again, take a good look, because um, there's a lot of people, out there in this world that are like that. All right. Um, Man, I have so much more. Um,
Two parts.
huh?
Two parts.
Yeah, I think we just might end up doing that. Yeah, we'll put this one in two parts, because this one I've got a whole lot more. Yeah, we'll split this one up into two parts. Yeah, we'll save the rest for next Sabbath. All right. Um, but again, why are we doing this lesson? Because we need our people to understand these sins, to be able to recognize them within themselves, and we need our people to repent. That's the ultimate goal. We need our people to repent, come back to our heritage, come back to our nationality, come back to serving our God, so that we can cast these demons out of our. She's more than like one of our people, and look at the demon she has in her. This is why we're doing this, because we have some of our people that are walking this earth right now like her. She's not alone. The prison system is full of hers. People like her. The prison system is full of Angela Simpsons, and the majority of them are people, men and women. Okay, and she's saying she did what he did all because he, quote unquote, was a so-called snitch. So why did she feel like it's okay to take this person's life because he was a so-called snitch? Because she never was taught Leviticus 5:1, never taught that if you see something, say something. She grew up probably in a situation where the people live by the so-called street code of not snitching. Snitches get stitches. So she's just so indifferent to the fact that, you know, like, why did you do it? Because he was a snitch, from what you said. Like, yeah, he was a snitch. Like, how did you know he was a snitch? Because he told me. And that's all it took to trigger her to take this person's life. And that's what I'm saying. You got to be real careful, because there could be people close to you, family members, friends, co-worker, somebody that's just not even a friend, but just, an associate, um, a distant acquaintance, that secretly could harbor some kind of ill feelings towards you, and you wouldn't even know it until it's too late. They could be sitting around plotting and planning to take your life, and you wouldn't even know it. You could get out your car at Walmart, Target, any of these grocery stores, and be walking towards the store, walking out the store towards your car, and not realize that, there's somebody hiding out in the parking lot waiting for you. And that's something I tell my wife all the time. Like, when you come out the store, make sure that you're aware of your surroundings. Look around the parking lot. More importantly, just don't look at people standing around, because yeah, you want to see the people standing around, but also you want to see the people that are just sitting in their cars, just kind of hanging out. You want to see who's sitting in those vans, sitting in that van or that SUV across the parking lot that's just sitting there, kind of look like they're watching people. Those are the people you need to see. Those are the people you need to look out for. Look between the cars, because you're seeing a lot of situations where, you know, people are hiding um, between cars. They're parking vans right up, you know, whoever the victim may be, they'll park their van right next to their car, wait for them, you know what I mean, to get to their car. Maybe put something on their windshields. You know, there's so many tactics that they're using nowadays to get somebody distracted so that they can grab them. Not, you know what I mean? We're talking about this, we're bringing it out, you know, number one, to bring repentance to our people, but also to bring awareness that there are demons out there like this that you have to keep yourself safe from. All right. Um, so let's go to Ecclesiastes 12, 13 through 14. And like I said, we'll continue this lesson tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, I'm sorry. Lord's will, next Sabbath. Not tomorrow, next Sabbath. Uh, let's get the Ecclesiastes and we'll end it there.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12 and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
And with that, we're going to say shalom. Most high in Christ bless. Blessed Sabbath to you. Enjoy the rest of it. And Lord's willing, we'll see you next Sabbath. Shalom.